They say every family has its cracks, but mine was more like a porcelain vase painted to look whole, passed around too many times, until it finally shattered in my hands. It happened during a birthday dinner. My mother Victoria was radiant that night, glowing under soft pendant lights in our family's modest suburban apartment. I'd brought her favorite wine. My younger brother Ryan sat across from me, laughing at something she said, all charm and zero substance, as usual. He always had that gift making our mother swoon like he was still 5 years old with a school ribbon in his hand. I stayed quiet, as I often did. I knew my role, the capable daughter, the one who fixed things, paid bills, never made a fuss. The invisible backbone of a household that only bent in Ryan's direction. "I'm thinking about getting a new car," Ryan announced, twirling pasta with a lazy grin. Something sporty. I took a sip of wine and said nothing. Melissa's voice echoed in my mind from last week. "Don't let them guilt you again, Claire." Mom beamed at Ryan. "You deserve it, baby." Then she turned to me. "Claire, sweetie, maybe you can help him out? You've been doing well at work, right?" That moment froze. The air thickened. I could feel my pulse in my neck. I smiled, calmly. "I already cover half of Ryan's rent every month. I think that's enough." Mom's face fell. Ryan frowned like I'd betrayed him personally. "You used to be more generous," he said. "It's just a little help." That phrase, just a little help, the anthem of every excuse, every emotional manipulation, every sacrificed dream I shelved in favor of keeping this family upright. "I'm doing fine at work," I replied, "but I'm not your personal ATM. I've done more than enough." Victoria's voice hardened. "After all we've done for you, is this how you repay us?" And something inside me, quiet, long-suffering, polite, finally broke. "Tell me, Mom," I said. "What exactly have you done for me?" "I paid for my own college, bought my own car. I've been financially independent since 19. Meanwhile, Ryan doesn't pay for half the apartment he lives in, and that's my help you're asking for more of?" The silence was thunderous. Then she said it. The thing I knew she thought but never thought she'd say aloud, "Because he's better than you." There it was. I stood, chair scraping against the wood floor, heart surprisingly steady. If he's so much better, I guess he doesn't need my help anymore. "I'm done." Victoria pointed to the door. "Get out of my house." I was already reaching for my coat. "You should check who's actually been covering Ryan's rent the past 2 years before kicking out your personal bank." Ryan's jaw dropped. Mom stared at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was. Maybe this was the first time they saw me without my wallet open. I left without another word. 3 days later, I received a letter that nearly stopped my heart. It arrived in an envelope too official looking to be anything good. A repossession notice for my car. The same car I'd paid off 3 years ago. The one with the title under my name. The one I'd bought at 19, proud and alone, after working 2 jobs through college. I called the number listed. After what felt like an hour bouncing between departments, a woman with a tight voice explained that Victoria Morgan, my mother, had taken out a title loan 6 months earlier, against my car, using my signature. I told her that was impossible. She sounded apologetic, but not surprised. "Ma'am," she said, "we have all the documents. Signed by you?" I asked for copies. She emailed them. There it was, my name, my social security number, and a signature that looked just close enough to pass. A near-perfect imitation. My mother had dug through my old school forms, probably while pretending to help me pack when I moved last year. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was calculated, pre-planned, executed with quiet, familial confidence, the kind that assumes you'll never press charges, because it's family. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the documents. My hands trembled. I wasn't just hurt. I felt violated in a way I couldn't name. Like someone had reached inside my body and taken something that didn't belong to them. I had 2 options. Pay the $7,000 loan she took out. File identity theft charges against my own mother. Or let them take my car. Instead, I found a fourth. I sold the car myself, paid off the debt, used what was left to buy a battered hatchback with no Bluetooth and a dent in the passenger side. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine, untouched, free from her reach. When Victoria found out what I'd done, she called, absolutely livid. How dare you sell that car? That money was supposed to help Ryan? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, you forged my name. You stole from me. I owe you nothing. And I hung up. That moment was the first time I felt truly untethered from her. But I didn't know then was only the beginning. They say betrayal is a blade best hidden behind smiles. But with my mother, it came behind pleasantries and the occasional passive-aggressive just checking in, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't stolen from me. A week passed after I sold the car. The silence from her and Ryan felt calculated, which, coming from Victoria, didn't surprise me. What surprised me was what came next. It started as a hunch, a whisper of anxiety that refused to leave. Something didn't sit right. I couldn't explain it, but I couldn't ignore it either. I logged into the joint savings account we had opened back when I was 16. It had been pitched to me as a safety net, a place for family emergencies. I never really questioned why Victoria insisted on keeping her name on it. Even after I turned 21, I should have. My stomach twisted as the numbers loaded. The account that once held over $30,000, my babysitting checks, summer jobs, holiday bonuses, every responsible decision I'd ever made was down to $7,853.49. I blinked. Then I checked the transaction history. Withdrawals, loan payments, transfers to a checking account under her name, charges labeled Ryan tuition, even though he hadn't been in school in 2 years. One note read, Ryan BDAI trip Vegas. Vegas. With my savings. My hands went cold, not from the number but the sheer deliberateness of it. This wasn't desperation. This was indulgence. She had drained my future for her whims and my brother's lifestyle. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. My face felt hot. There wasn't a trace of guilt in her recent messages, just cheerful emojis and thinly veiled guilt trips. Haven't heard from you in a bit, sweetie. We miss you. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not in anger but in clarity. She didn't just forge my name. She didn't just exploit my generosity. She harvested my trust. And Ryan? He wasn't a victim of her manipulation. He was a beneficiary. He rode the wave, blindfolded by privilege, carried by a mother who never demanded anything from him but adoration. I didn't even bother texting her. I put on jeans, tied my hair up, grabbed my keys, and drove straight to the bank. The woman at the counter looked surprised when I requested a full withdrawal and immediate account closure. She asked if I was sure. I nodded, smiled politely, and lied, just simplifying things. 20 minutes later, I was holding a cashier's check with my name on it. Every cent she hadn't yet gotten her claws on. I closed the account. And just like that, another string tying me to her snapped. That afternoon, my phone lit up with her name. I let it ring, then again, and again. Finally, I answered. What the hell do you think you're doing? She snapped. Her voice was sharp, less mother, more debt collector. I took what's mine, I said evenly. Before you took the rest. Her gasp was so theatrical, I could practically hear her clutching her pearls. You don't understand, Claire. The creditors are your problem, not mine. You owe us. After everything I've done for you. You mean after everything you've taken from me? Silence. Then came the screaming. How I was heartless, ungrateful, how I was tearing the family apart, how Ryan needed that money more than I did, how I was cruel to take it when she was barely keeping things together. That part almost made me laugh. She'd painted me as the villain for rescuing the last scrap of my own savings. No, Victoria, I said. You tore this family apart. I'm just finally walking away from the wreckage. I hung up before she could respond and blocked her number. Blocked Ryan's too. Then I changed the locks on my apartment, even though I hadn't given them keys in months. It felt symbolic, necessary, cleansing. 2 days later, I came home to my door slightly open. My stomach dropped. Inside, chaos. My laptop was gone. So was my TV. The watch my grandfather had left me, the one I kept in a velvet box, never worn, was missing. I called the police. The officer barely flinched when I said I suspected my mother. Turns out, pawn shops are surprisingly cooperative when you show up with a theft report and a name. They had her signature on the pawn slip. Said she'd been chatty, bragging even. She sold my things for pennies on the dollar. I was past heartbreak by then. All I felt was bone-deep exhaustion. The kind that doesn't fade with sleep. The kind that comes from finally seeing someone for who they really are. I hired a lawyer, recorded our next call, let her hang herself with her own words, then gave her a choice: return every dollar she ever stole, or I'd press charges. She paid. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the message. I'm not yours to use. I cut all contact after that. No calls, no visits, no check-ins. It was like cauterizing a wound, painful, ugly, but clean, final. Still, at night, the silence echoed. It wasn't peace yet, it was just the absence of chaos. The emptiness after collapse. The quiet that comes before rebuilding. But in that quiet, I found something new. Space. Space to breathe. Space to grieve. And space to become someone I'd never been allowed to be, free. They don't tell you what silence sounds like after a storm. At first, it roars. The absence of noise feels almost violent, like your brain doesn't know how to process stillness after years of chaos. I didn't realize how conditioned I'd been to brace for guilt, gaslighting, or guilt-laced voicemails until there were none. It was quiet, unnaturally so. I'd officially gone no contact. I changed my number, closed old emails, moved apartments, new locks, new street, new lease, and yet I still reached for my phone at night. Habit is a tenacious beast. Sometimes I'd tap open my contacts out of reflex, thumb hovering over Ryan's name, not because I wanted to talk, but because some twisted part of me wondered if he'd texted, and I just hadn't seen it. He hadn't. They both hadn't. The silence didn't just echo, it expanded. The first holiday came and went. I cooked a quiet dinner for myself, lit a candle, and listened to old jazz on a scratched vinyl I found in a secondhand shop. No one sent me a plate. No one asked what I was doing. No performative invites. Just space. Grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it's the ache in your hands when you realize you're setting the table for one. Not because no one is around, but because you've finally chosen not to beg for a seat at theirs. There were days when I questioned everything. Was I being too harsh? Was I heartless? Then I'd remember the forged loan, the drained account, the broken lock, the pawn slip with my mother's handwriting. That wasn't family. That was theft wrapped in obligation. I had given them chance after chance to meet me halfway. They just kept rerouting to wherever Ryan stood. He, by the way, hadn't even sent a single text, not even to ask where the rent was coming from now. I found out through Melissa that he'd moved back in with Victoria. Apparently, his apartment lease expired a week after I pulled out. He'd never been able to afford it without my help, but no one seemed to think that was his problem to solve. Victoria, she made it everyone's. A friend from my old job texted me a screenshot of a post she'd made on Facebook. A vague but pointed paragraph about ungrateful children and family betrayals. No names, of course, just enough innuendo for the gossip mill to churn. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. What surprised me most in the months that followed wasn't how hard it was to stay away. It was how relieving it became. No more sudden calls asking for a little help. No more guilt-tripping over Sunday dinners. No more comparison to Ryan's charm and my cold logic. No more wondering what boundary they'd cross next because the answer had become crystal clear. All of them, all the time, without hesitation. Going no contact wasn't a nuclear decision. It was the only one I hadn't yet tried. And slowly, I began to fill the silence. I redecorated my new apartment. Nothing fancy. Just touches that were mine. Soft blankets. Shelves filled with books no one would mock for being boring. Framed photos of friends who chose me without asking for proof of loyalty. I joined a yoga class, not because I was on some spiritual path, but because I liked the stillness between the poses, the quiet where I didn't have to explain myself. Melissa became my lighthouse. She never judged, only listened. Sometimes she'd drop by with iced coffee and muffins. We didn't talk about the past much, just the present. It was enough. Work was steady. I even got a promotion. My boss said I had a grounded clarity that made people trust my judgment. I laughed if only she knew that clarity was carved out through betrayal, not enlightenment. But maybe that was the point. Sometimes the most valuable traits come from the ugliest soil. Still, the doubt crept in late at night, especially when the city was too quiet. I'd sit on my small balcony, look out at the windows glowing in the distance, and wonder, did I do the right thing? Then I'd picture my laptop in a pawn shop, and the question would vanish. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. The anger had burned itself out. What remained was something quieter, heavier like cooled ash. A soft grief for the family I thought I could have. The sisterhood I'd tried to build with Ryan. The maternal bond I'd fought to salvage with Victoria. But grief doesn't always mean regret. Sometimes it's just acknowledgement. Yes, that happened. Yes, it hurt. No, it wasn't my fault. One night, I wrote it all down. Every memory, every bank transaction, every betrayal. A private archive, part journal, part evidence. I didn't write it for revenge. I wrote it for me. To remind myself that none of it had been imagined. That my pain had receipts. It was 2:57 a.m. when I finished. And I asked myself one final question. If a stranger had done this to you, would you have stayed? The answer came quickly. No, never. So why should it be different just because it was my mother or my brother? Abuse in a familiar voice is still abuse. Gaslighting wrapped in birthday cake is still manipulation. And betrayal, no matter how blood-bound, is still betrayal. I closed the document, backed it up to a secure drive. Then I stood up, walked to the window and opened it. The air smelled like lavender from a neighbor's balcony. A breeze passed through. For the first time in a long time, I let myself believe I wasn't selfish for leaving. I was simply free. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I'd last heard my mother's voice in person. 3 years since I stood in that kitchen, napkin still in hand, when she told me my brother was better than me. Since she demanded loyalty while draining my savings and forging my name onto debt. Since Ryan blinked at me, like he was the one being abandoned, oblivious to the hands that had carried him for years. I'd almost forgotten what their voices sounded like in real life. Not voicemail, not letters, not echoing memories bouncing off the walls of therapy sessions. Just real-time sound. Until I ran into her in the grocery store. It was a Tuesday. I'd come in for oat milk and strawberries. My headphones were in. The weather was good. My job was stable. I had dinner plans. Life was solid, quiet, mine. And then I turned into the produce section and saw her. Victoria. She looked older. Not dramatically so, but her posture was different. Her face drawn. Her eyes searching for something. I couldn't tell if it was apples or atonement. We locked eyes. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she took a slow step forward, clutching her purse strap like it might anchor her to the floor. "Claire," she said softly, almost reverently, as if the name itself carried weight. "You look, well." I nodded. "I am." She smiled, brittle but sincere. "Your hair's longer." It wasn't a question, just a fragile attempt to recognize the woman standing before her, not the daughter she expected to break. Not the bank account she once withdrew from emotionally and financially. She looked down at the oranges. I don't know why that hurt more than anything, her avoiding my eyes when, for years, all I wanted was her to see me. I wanted to tell you something, she said. If that's all right. I didn't say yes, but I didn't walk away either. Your brother, Ryan, he has a son now. The words hung in the air. I didn't move. She swallowed. He named him after you. I blinked. My name Claire wasn't exactly gender neutral, but Ryan had always liked bending things into symbolism. It probably made sense in his world, she went on. He said it was because, even after everything, you still showed him what responsibility looks like. My breath caught. For a moment, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt nothing. Not warmth, not pride, just distance. Like hearing your name on a stranger's voicemail. Recognizable, but distant, detached. She looked up again. He's trying. He's working full-time. Night classes. It's not perfect, but he's living with you, I finished. The first thing I'd said aloud since I am, she nodded. We're doing what we can. There was a long pause. Then she reached out, paused, and gently touched my arm. Just for a second. I should have protected you, she said, voice trembling. I should have seen you. I stared at her hand, then at her face. Her eyes were glassy now, wrinkles carved deeper by time and regret. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered, but I needed you to know. I understand now. Why you left? I didn't reply. I couldn't. Not yet. But my silence wasn't cruel this time. It was intentional. Processing. She offered a small, tired smile. You always deserved more than we gave. And just like that, she stepped back. No demand to reconnect. No guilt trip. Just that. A sentence I'd spent a lifetime waiting for. She turned to leave, then stopped. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. I should have said that more. Then she disappeared into aisle 6. I stood there a long time, my hands wrapped around a carton of strawberries I no longer wanted. The ache that followed wasn't sharp. It was soft. A dull ache of grief, not for her, not even for Ryan, but for the family that could have been. The one I clung to in childhood dreams and teenage justifications. A version of us that never existed. Later that night, I found the email. It was from Ryan. Subject line, please, just read this. I didn't want to, but I opened it anyway. He wrote, Claire, I don't know what to say, but I wanted you to know. I'm sorry. I get it now. Mom told me about the bank, the car, everything. I didn't know. I thought you were just angry. But you weren't. You were surviving. You were protecting yourself. I understand that now. I don't deserve your help, but I hope someday you'll meet my son. I told him about you. How strong you are. Ryan, I sat with the message for a long time. Not crying, not raging, just breathing. The cursor hovered over the reply button. Then I clicked mark as read and closed my laptop. Forgiveness doesn't always come in a reply. Sometimes the peace is in not replying at all. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still living in my apartment with the balcony view. Still going to work. Still grocery shopping solo. Still reaching for silence like a soft old friend instead of a reminder of loss. People always ask, do you ever think you'll reconnect? Here's the truth. I dream about it sometimes. A version where they mean it, where no one takes and no one plays favorites. A version where Victoria doesn't whisper love while draining me dry. Where Ryan doesn't wear the crown I earned, but dreams aren't promises. And healing isn't an open door, it's a boundary line with flowers planted in front. I don't hate them. I don't wish them harm. I hope Ryan becomes the father ours never was. I hope Victoria means what she said. But I'm not walking back into that house. Some bridges deserve to burn, not for revenge, but for freedom. Story 2. My name's Caleb Turner, 41 years old. First Sergeant in the 173rd Airborne. When the email came through, I was sitting in the blistering heat of Helmand Province, halfway through a 9-month rotation. 13 years of marriage ended with a PDF, and a subject line that read, "Let's be mature about this." She didn't even say goodbye. Amanda, the woman I'd built a life with, had sent me a 3-sentence message. Divorce filed, bank account drained, and her new boyfriend, Evan, had moved into the house I bought back in Boise. The same house I'd remodeled with my own hands. I read it twice, closed the laptop, walked into the communal showers, water lukewarm and gritty, got dressed, said nothing. When I returned to my bunk, I replied with one word, noted. That was it. No yelling, no pleas, no rage. Just a man absorbing a hit and silently planning the next move. Anderson, my bunkmate, noticed. "You all right, Top?" he asked, eyes still glued to the sci-fi paperback in his hand. "Yeah," I said. "Stuff at home. That's all I had to give. Soldiers know when not to dig." Truth is, I wasn't shocked. Things had been off for months before I deployed. Amanda had become distant. She stopped asking about my days, said she was working overtime at her medical billing job, yet somehow always looked fresh-faced and well-rested. She started training for a 10K, but never broke a sweat. New clothes, locked phone, and unfamiliar names in her texts. I didn't pry. I'm not wired like that. But I took notes, quietly. Before I left, I secured what mattered. Birth certificate, military discharge papers, deed to the house which, thanks to my VA loan, had only my name on it. I stored them in a rented unit, 2 towns over. Slid some sentimental things in there too, my dad's watch, my mom's old photos, and a lockbox with about $15K in savings. I'd siphoned off to a separate credit union, just in case. When she hugged me goodbye at the airport, her eyes were dry. No tears, just a stiff pat on the back. Like she was seeing off a coworker, not a husband heading to war. One should have known. But even then, part of me hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. What Amanda didn't realize is that I'm not the man who storms in swinging. I'm the one who waits, plans, strikes when it counts. We met in 2009 at a friend's 4th of July party. I was home between tours, and she was fresh out of nursing school. We hit it off over cheap beer and potato salad. Married 8 months later, she used to say she loved the purpose I had in the Army. Even though her family couldn't relate, her dad ran a car dealership, and her brother was a tech consultant in Seattle. Over time, that purpose became a problem. "When are you going to get a real job?" she'd ask. I tried to explain that after 16 years, this was my real job. I wasn't just playing soldier. In 2015, we bought the house in Boise. Small place. 3 bedrooms, modest yard. Her name never made it onto the loan, but I added her to the deed because that's what love looked like to me, sharing the load. She didn't see it that way. Deployments changed us. Or maybe they revealed who we really were. Each time I came home, Amanda seemed more gone. Her words were shorter, her hugs looser, the love thinner. By 2022, the writing was on the wall, but I still hoped she'd stick around. Then came the email. 2 weeks after that, while I was eating chow and trying to ignore the ache in my chest, I got a push notification from our shared bank account. Withdrawal, $89,300. Gone. Savings we'd built together, now transferred to an account I didn't recognize. I stared at the screen. $23.81 left. That was all. So that night, I called the bank from a dusty satellite comms tent and confirmed what I already knew. She'd been draining the funds since the day I deployed. Small pulls at first, then a series of larger transfers over the past month. The big one had just landed. I didn't say a word for a while after hanging up, just sat there, watching dust swirl around my boots. Anderson found me. "Heard you looked like death warmed over at dinner. Want to talk?" My wife emptied our accounts, moved in her boyfriend, sent divorce papers while I was patrolling south of Sangjin. He let out a slow exhale. "That's brutal." Then, after a beat, he asked, "What's your plan?" I didn't know, not yet, but I knew it was time to start writing one. Later that night, I logged into the security system back home. Amanda never remembered that I still had remote access. Our front door camera lit up the screen. Evan, a man I'd never seen before, wearing my Boise State hoodie, walked the dog I'd trained. Inside, Amanda sipped coffee out of my favorite mug, while laughing with him in the kitchen I remodeled by hand. Something flipped inside me. Not rage, something colder, more calculated. I opened my notes app and started typing. To-do list, contact Elena. Army buddy turned lawyer request early leave through battalion. CO review refinance documents. Amanda mentioned in January secure my VA benefits and pension access. This wasn't about revenge. This was about making sure I didn't get left with the broken pieces. At 0430, I sent Elena a short message. Need help. Discreet. Urgent. Her reply came before I'd even laced my boots. Call me. Secure line only. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. Not for war, but for peace. My peace. I didn't need to yell. I just needed to be precise. 2 months later, I stepped off a plane in Idaho under a false name. No welcome home signs. No fanfare. I wasn't here to make a scene. I checked into a motel on the edge of town. Same one I stayed in when I was 19 and ran away from home for a week. Some things don't change. Elena met me at a diner outside Caldwell. She slid a manila folder across the table. Found something you're gonna want to see, she said. Inside, mortgage refinance docs, recent bank statements, and a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. Middle initial was wrong. Stroke order off. She forged it? I asked. Elena nodded. 3 months ago, pulled out $320,000 in equity using your name. Used part of it to pay off her car. The rest? Transferred out. Where to? She pulled another page. Account linked to Evan Myers, her new boyfriend. I stared at the page, heart hammering in my chest. She forged my name. Took out a loan against my house. With him. It gets better, Elena said. Evan? He's got priors. DUI, fraud, domestic complaint from 2017 that never made it to court. Why didn't I see this coming? Because you were busy serving your country. She was busy serving herself. I took a deep breath. So what do I do now? Elena leaned back and smiled. Now, we get it all back. After that diner meeting with Elena, I knew I wasn't coming at this with anger. I was coming at it with clarity. I'd seen too much overseas to let betrayal shake my hands now. This wasn't a fight. It was a mission. The next morning, I went straight to the bank that handled the refinance. I walked in calm, clean-shaven, boots shined. Didn't look like a man whose life had just been gutted. Looked like a man with a folder full of truth. I sat down with a loan officer named Greg. Mid-40s, thin glasses, looked like the type who wore hiking gear to the office just in case. I slid my ID across the table, then handed him the refinance papers. Take a good look at the signature. He scanned the document, then the license, and I watched his face change shade by shade. This isn't right. No, it's not. He swallowed, clearly uncomfortable. Did you report this? Yes. Police and a lawyer. I'm just here, so we're all on the same page before this gets worse. He nodded. I'll need to escalate this to our fraud department. Good, I said. Also, you should know, the co-applicant, Evan Myers, he's a convicted fraudster. Check your system. His name shouldn't have passed any verification. Greg's mouth opened a little like he wanted to argue, then closed it again. That afternoon, Amanda texted me for the first time in months. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Evan said. Someone was asking questions. I didn't answer. Not that day. Instead, I kept working the plan. Day 3 back in town. I drove to the courthouse and filed a motion contesting the refinance under fraudulent pretenses. The house was still legally mine, and now it was a ticking bomb under Amanda and Evan's feet. They just didn't know it yet. Day 4, Amanda called. I let it ring out. Voicemail hit. Caleb, what's going on? The bank called me about the loan. Why are you making this difficult? I thought we could be adults. Adults. Same word she used to end our marriage. I didn't call back, but I did open the security app on my phone and rewound the footage to earlier that day. My front door camera lit up. Evan, wearing one of my old army hoodies, let himself in with my key, walked straight into my kitchen, and poured himself a drink. That image stayed with me. Not because I cared about the sweatshirt or the whiskey, but because he walked into a life he didn't build. A life I carved out of sweat and years, and he treated it like his own Airbnb. I called Elena. We're moving to the next phase, I said. Let me guess you've got receipts? More than that, I said. I've got eyes inside the house. The next day, I visited the fraud investigator assigned by the bank, some guy named Marcus. He looked tired and underpaid, coffee stain on his tie, keyboard that had seen better decades. We've frozen the refinance funds, he told me. But there's an issue. Go on. Half of it's already gone. About $160,000. I didn't even blink. Where did it go? I'm technically not supposed to tell you that. It's my house. My name was forged. That money came out of my home. He paused, then turned his screen toward me. There it was, line after line of outgoing transfers, all to someone named Kendall Rowe. Who's that? I asked. Marcus shrugged. You tell me. I didn't recognize the name, but I sure as hell was going to find out. Elena dug into it. A couple hours later, she called. Kendall's a real estate broker. Specializes in distressed sales and cash buys. Guess who else she's worked with? I already knew the answer. Evan Myers, she said. 3 times in the last 2 years. Every time, the same pattern. He gets involved with a woman in financial strain or divorce, gets her house listed through Kindle, flips it in a quiet off-market deal, and walks away with a cut. I felt the blood drain from my face. She was going to sell the house, I said. That fast. That quiet. Already in motion, Elena confirmed. But here's the kicker, this guy has a pattern. You're not the first soldier he's done this to. The FBI's been sniffing around his name for months. Everything was starting to fit together. Amanda wasn't just cheating on me. She was in bed, literally and legally, with a con artist running a targeted scam against military families. The FBI didn't need much convincing. Elena and I laid out the timeline, handed over documents, login logs, security footage, even the screen recordings of Evan and Kendall talking through listing prices like they were planning a damn yard sale. The agents Donovan and Singh took it all in. You're not the first, Agent Singh said. But this case? It might be the one that cracks it. They advised me not to contact Amanda. Not yet. Let the rope pull tight, I agreed. But I still needed to know what Amanda thought was happening. So I watched. Set up a digital trail. Caught Evan using my old laptop to email Kendall. Found a draft listing for my home underpriced by at least $80K, with a note that read, seller needs quick close. They were going to sell it out from under me, while I was still on paper as the legal owner. Amanda texted again that night. I don't know what Evan's done, but this is spiraling. Please, let's talk. I replied with just 4 words. Who is Kendall Rowe? She went quiet. For 2 hours. Then, it's not what you think. No denial. No confusion. Just deflection. That told me everything. The FBI had me meet them early the next morning. We're ready, Agent Donovan said. We'd like to catch them in the act if possible. Got anything planned? Yeah, I said. They're listing the house today. 10-point AM walkthrough. At 9:45. Amanda left the house, probably heading to meet me at the park where I said I'd talk. I wasn't going. I had other plans. At 10:02 a.m., Kendall showed up at the house, real estate sign in hand. Evan opened the door. They laughed, chatted, walked through the house like it belonged to them. They had no idea I was watching them live on camera, sitting in an unmarked FBI SUV with 2 agents recording every word. I've already got a buyer lined up, Kendall said in the video feed. Cash. We listed 390 close for 355 clean and easy. And the husband? She asked Evan. He's military, he said, waving it off. They never follow through. He'll just want to avoid the drama. Nice hoodie, I muttered. Agent Singh grinned. We've got enough. Ready? I nodded. Let's get my house back. FBI vehicles rolled up hard and fast. I watched from the side street as agents arrested Evan and Kendall right there in my driveway. Amanda came screeching up minutes later. She saw the lights, the cuffs. She looked at me across the street and froze. She didn't say a word, didn't need to. She knew. Everything had changed. Elena called that night. You want to press charges? Only for the forgery, I said. The rest? Let the feds handle it. Amanda ended up cooperating, claimed she didn't know about the full scheme. That Evan told her I was hiding money, planning to leave her broke, that the refinance was his idea. She just went along. Maybe that was true. Maybe she was lying to protect herself. Either way, she signed a full confession on the forgery, gave up all claims to the house and my pension, paid back the remaining funds under threat of prosecution. I didn't want revenge. I wanted closure. We finalized the divorce quietly 6 months after that email from the desert. No fault, no contact, no second chances. The day the divorce was finalized, I signed the papers in Elena's office, then walked out into the Boise spring air like it was the first breath I'd taken in a year. Crisp, clean, no weight on my chest. The storm had passed. The house was mine again, but I didn't want it. Too many ghosts. Too many memories layered into the drywall. Amanda's laughter echoing in the kitchen I built. Evan's face caught on camera, lounging in the living room like he owned it. I couldn't live there and pretend none of it had happened. So I sold it. Got a good price, too, more than Kendall had planned to list it for. That's for damn sure. I used the money to buy a cabin about an hour outside Missoula. Just trees, sky, and a creek that runs through the backyard like it's got nowhere better to be. 2 bedrooms, wood stove, no neighbors in sight. Exactly what I needed. I didn't tell many people where I was going. Just Elena, my CO, and Anderson. I'd earned my early retirement 20 years in, enough scars to prove it. The Army had been my home, my compass. But the war was over, outside and inside. I got a dog, a shepherd mix named Boone. Smart, loyal, quiet, unless there's reason not to be. We spend our mornings walking the land and our evenings on the porch, just listening to the world settle down. I picked up some carpentry jobs in town. Nothing major. Built a few decks, restored a barn door, even made a custom table for a local diner. The work is honest, and the people don't ask too many questions. Folks out here don't care where you've been, just who you are now. And I'm learning who that is. Every day, a little more. Amanda never reached out again. Not after the last message I sent her, short and cold. We're done. You chose your path. I'm walking mine. I know she tried to play the victim with mutual friends, said I blindsided her, said she didn't know. Evan was running a scam, that I had shut her out emotionally for years. But the facts speak louder than pity plays. She lost the house, lost access to my pension, had to repay nearly $80K to avoid felony charges. Last I heard, she moved back to her hometown in Oregon, works at a new dental clinic. Still driving the same car she bought with stolen equity, but it's in her name now. At least there's that. I don't hate her. Not anymore. What I feel now is nothing. And honestly, that's a kind of peace I never thought I'd have. About a year after it all went down, I got a letter. Real paper. Real ink. Addressed to my P.O. box in Missoula. It was from a woman named Tasha, a Navy wife from Florida. She wrote, "You don't know me, but I wanted to say thank you. Your case helped the FBI shut down the scam Evan and Kendall were running. My husband was deployed when they tried the same trick on us. Because of your testimony, we kept our home. We're still together, still standing." She closed with this. Sometimes standing up for yourself helps strangers too. I pinned that letter to my fridge with a magnet shaped like a pine tree. Still look at it every morning when I get my coffee. Not because I think I'm some kind of hero, but because it reminds me that the pain I went through built something stronger than bitterness. Evan and Kendall both took plea deals. Evan got 7 years. Kendall got 12. The FBI said they found over a dozen military families affected, stolen equity, forged documents, ghost sales. Amanda was never formally charged, but her statement helped lock the others in. Elena said I could have pushed for more: public trials, civil suits, media attention. I said no. I wasn't chasing headlines. I was just reclaiming my name. Some nights, I still think about the email. Let's be mature about this. What a joke. There's nothing mature about stealing from someone while they're risking their life halfway across the world. There's nothing mature about treating your marriage like a lease with a termination clause. But there's maturity in letting go, in not turning bitter, in building a life so solid no one can knock it down again. I don't know what Amanda thinks about now. If she regrets it, if she still spins stories to justify it all, doesn't matter. Her chapter's closed. And mine's just starting again. The thing about betrayal is, it forces you to face yourself, strip everything down, ask hard questions. What do I actually want? Who do I want to be? For me, the answer came slow but clear. I want peace. I want silence that doesn't feel empty. I want to build with my hands, to walk through a home and know every inch was shaped by something real. And I've got that now. No one can take it from me, because I won't let them. Some mornings, I sit on my porch with Boone curled up at my feet, coffee in hand, the sun just starting to climb over the ridge. I watch the creek shimmer and think, this life? This is mine. Every hard-earned inch of it. And no forged signature, no fake smile, no paper betrayal will ever change that. I was never the kind of man to go looking for a fight. But if it finds me again, it'll learn real fast. I always finish what someone else starts. Story 3. They say baby showers are supposed to be soft, sweet affairs, pastel balloons, dainty snacks, friends and family smiling as they pass around onesies and talk about the glow of motherhood. That's what I imagined when I planned mine. Nothing extravagant, just a warm afternoon to feel celebrated, seen, loved. I bought everything myself: the food, the cake, the decorations. I even vacuumed the living room 3 times to get rid of the smell of my dad's cigars. 8 months pregnant, and I still dragged a step stool around the house to hang paper garlands because no one else offered to help. But for a moment, it looked like maybe, just maybe, it would go the way I hoped. My aunt handed me a stack of picture books and smiled. My cousin gave me a plush rabbit and said it reminded her of something I would have carried as a kid. I thought, okay, this might actually be okay. Then my mom tapped her wine glass with a fork. I knew that sound. I knew that tone, and I knew immediately this wasn't about me. We have a surprise, she trilled, her arm linked with my dad's. And right on cue, my younger brother Ryan stepped forward holding an envelope like he'd just cured cancer. I got into Harvard, he said. The room erupted. Cheers, clapping, someone even whistled. A couple of my cousins bolted up to hug him. The same ones who just 5 minutes ago had been telling me how excited they were for the baby. The shift was instant, physical. The energy tilted toward him, like someone had opened a window and sucked all the air out of my day. The snack table I'd carefully curated, rated. The cake, ignored. People started asking Ryan questions about dorms and majors. And then came the high school entourage, his friends. Backpacks still slung over one shoulder, loud and confident like they owned the place. One of them actually yelled, "Where's the party at?" A portable speaker appeared. Someone connected it. Suddenly, my gentle acoustic playlist was drowned under bass-heavy rap. I was still standing there, wearing a pink sash that said "Mom to be," holding a cup of herbal tea like it was a lifeline. And then, it happened. Someone set a bottle of soda next to the cake, knocked it over, and the fizzy mess started running down the side. No one noticed. I did. I grabbed some napkins, crouched down to catch the drip before it stained the table. There I was, swollen ankles and all, wiping frosting off the floor like a waitress at a party that wasn't hers. Someone actually stepped over me to hug Ryan. Didn't even say, "Excuse me." I stayed on my knees for a moment, sticky napkin in hand, listening to the laughter above me. Ryan was in the next room, talking about his scholarship. My mom was bragging about the test prep they paid for. I remember thinking, did they forget this was supposed to be about the baby? About me? But of course, they hadn't forgotten. They just didn't care. When I stood up, I looked around the room. The paper garlands I'd hung with care were crumpled. My baby name banner had been moved to make space for a hand-drawn sign that said, "Go Ryan," in giant red letters. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I went to the kitchen, washed my hands, and went to my room. Later that night, the house was still vibrating from the leftover noise and beer breath. I sat on my bed, back aching, ankles swollen, eyes dry. I opened a folder on my phone, one I'd been quietly updating for months. I didn't argue, but I didn't forget either. When we were kids, I thought Ryan and I were equals, just two siblings trying to survive under the same messy roof. But the older I got, the more I realized how uneven the scales really were. Ryan burned my favorite stuffed animal when we were kids. I got blamed for leaving it where he could find it. He broke a window playing baseball inside somehow. I ended up grounded because I didn't watch him better. When I got good grades, it was, well, at least you're trying. When Ryan got the same grades, let's get him a tutor. He's got potential. At 16, I told my mom I wanted to go to college. She laughed, said, "You don't need to waste money on that. Just get a job and save." So I did. I stocked shelves at a dollar store and packed boxes in my bedroom for the tiny online business I started. I saved. I bought this house. I didn't ask them for a cent. They didn't know I was the one paying the mortgage, because technically, the deed was under my name, but I let them believe it was ours. When I told them I was pregnant, I got a blank stare. My dad asked if the father was around. My mom said, "Oh," like she was reacting to a canceled dinner reservation. The only time she really spoke about it was when she called me lucky to be living at home. Except I wasn't. Not really. I paid the mortgage, the water bill, the internet. I even helped pay for Ryan's SAT tutoring. I didn't argue, but I kept notes. And after the baby shower that wasn't mine, I took action. The next morning, I placed 3 envelopes on the kitchen table, neatly labeled with each of their names. Inside, eviction notices, 30 days, certified mail copies were already sent. I didn't want to scream. I wanted silence. I wanted peace. At 7:00 a.m., I was drinking tea at the table when my mom walked in, bleary-eyed and yawning. Then she saw the envelope. She opened it. Her lips moved as she read. Then she shrieked, "What is this?" I didn't even blink. My dad stumbled in. Ryan followed, still scratching his head like he'd just woken up from a great dream. "She's kicking us out," my mom screamed, waving the paper. "You're kidding," my dad muttered, grabbing his own letter. "Nope," I said. "I gave you 30 days. It's all legal." Ryan stared at me like I'd grown horns. "You're evicting us? Over what? A party?" I met his gaze. Not a party. Every moment leading up to it, the shouting continued, the accusations, the guilt trips. My mom cried. My dad raged. Ryan yelled that I was being dramatic, but none of it touched me. I was done being the quiet daughter who gave until there was nothing left. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a declaration. I wanted my house back. I wanted my peace. And for the first time in years, I wasn't going to apologize for it. The first few days after the notices went out, weirdly quiet. Not peaceful quiet, more like the air before a thunderstorm. No one spoke to me unless absolutely necessary. The house felt like a hotel lobby during a fire drill. People moving around but avoiding eye contact, acting like if they didn't acknowledge me. Maybe none of it was real. I didn't push. I made breakfast like usual, tidied the nursery, answered business emails. But the clock had already started ticking. Ryan stopped blasting music in his room. My mom stopped pretending to fold laundry in the living room. My dad just sat on the porch most mornings, nursing the same cold coffee for hours, like it held the answer to everything. But I knew it wouldn't stay like that. By day 4, the phone calls started. First, it was my Aunt Valerie. Haven't talked to her in over a year. She left a voicemail with that fake, concerned voice. "Hey, sweetie, just checking in. Your mom mentioned you're going through a tough time?" Right. Then came my uncle, a few old family friends, even my cousin from Florida, who hasn't been to a family event in 5 years. Somehow, they all suddenly heard about the eviction and were worried. Worried for who, though? Because none of them had ever called when I was silently handling bills, or working 2 jobs, or planning a baby shower with no help while pregnant and exhausted. The spin machine was in full swing. My mom had started planting the narrative. I was emotional, overwhelmed, acting out because of pregnancy hormones. That's how they framed it. Not years of being overlooked, not the baby shower ambush, not the fact that I was paying for everything while being treated like a squatter in my own house. Just a hormonal episode. I didn't respond. Not to the voicemails. Not to the text that said things like, "Maybe take a breath," or "Family is hard, but you can't just throw them out." Actually, I could, and I was. By day 7, Ryan started trying a new approach: guilt. He cornered me by the fridge after dinner. "I talked to my college advisor," he said, voice dripping with tension. "If I don't finalize my housing by next month, I might lose my spot." I raised my eyebrows. "Guess you better pack." He blinked. "You don't even care." I tilted my head. "Did you care when I was 8 months pregnant? Wiping cake off the floor while your friends turned my baby shower into a keg party?" His jaw clenched. He stormed off, slammed his door like he was the victim. Day 10 brought something new. Sabotage. I got a call from my business partner, quiet voice, hesitant tone. "Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. Someone emailed the company inbox, anonymously. They said you might not be mentally fit to keep running things after the baby's born. Suggested we start looking at other leadership options." She paused. I didn't believe it, obviously, but it was worded weirdly specific. I asked her to forward the email. She did. The phrasing? Almost identical to texts my mom had sent me months ago when we argued about my workload during pregnancy. Copy-pasted. I didn't reply. I didn't confront her. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Day 12. My mom finally dropped the mask. She caught me in the hallway. "I know you think you're strong now," she hissed. "But when that baby comes, and you're up at 3 a.m., with a screaming newborn, don't come crawling back to us. You're going to need help." I looked her dead in the eye. "I needed help a long time ago," I said. "None of you showed up then. I'm not counting on you now." Day 16, the deputy came. I saw his cruiser pull up through the front window. He left an envelope at the door and tipped his hat before walking back to his car. My dad opened it, read it, went pale. Then he punched the wall. "Court filing," he muttered. She actually filed. Yup. Eviction paperwork was now official. They thought I wouldn't go through with it, that it was just a bluff, that I'd cave. They were wrong. By day 20, the guilt trips turned into full-blown tantrums. My mom sat in the living room, fake crying so loud the neighbors probably heard, listing everything she'd ever done for me, like a grocery receipt of selfless parenting. "I let you stay in my home when you got knocked up. I sacrificed my peace. I even watched your laundry pile up without complaining." I slipped on my headphones and continued updating the baby registry. Day 25. Ryan's girlfriend came over. They started loudly talking in the kitchen. just within earshot. She's insane, he told her. She's going to screw up that baby's life without us. What kind of woman throws out her family right before giving birth? I walked in. His girlfriend flinched. You were at the baby shower, I said to her. Calm, flat. You watched them erase me. You watched underage kids drink in my house. If I ever need to make a list of names for law enforcement, guess who's on it? She went pale. She left within 10 minutes. By day 28, the packing started. First, it was a single suitcase near the hallway, then a box in the garage. Quiet, reluctant, like they were hoping I wouldn't notice. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk. I just watched. Day 30. My dad left first, didn't say goodbye, just grabbed his keys and walked out like he was headed to the store, not to permanent displacement. My mom stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face red from tears and fury. You'll regret this, she said. I nodded once. Maybe, but not today. Ryan was the last. Backpack slung over one shoulder, chin jutted out like he was trying to act cool, like this didn't hurt. You're lucky, he said. Without me around, you won't have anyone left to blame. I smiled. Exactly. Finally, some peace. He rolled his eyes and left. The door clicked shut behind him. The silence that followed, real this time. Not the tense, heavy kind. Not the fake peace between arguments. This was clean, clear. I stood there in the empty hallway, the air different somehow, lighter, like the house had been holding its breath for years and was finally exhaling. I walked into the nursery, folded a few onesies, adjusted the mobile above the crib, placed a soft pink blanket on the mattress, and smoothed it out. Outside, the wind brushed softly through the trees. And inside, for the first time since I was a kid, I felt safe. Not because anyone gave me safety, because I built it. It's been 4 years since the day I took my house back. Funny how fast everything changes when you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to live your life. I used to think peace would come like a reward after enough sacrifice, after being good long enough, after proving myself worthy. Turns out, peace shows up the moment you stop making space for people who never saw you in the first place. My daughter just started preschool last month. She wears this little purple backpack with a dinosaur patch on it. And every morning, she tells me, I'm going to teach my friends how to draw clouds. She's bright and curious and kind in a way that knocks the air out of me sometimes. She has this fire that's never loud, but always steady, like a lantern on a quiet night. She reminds me of me, only freer. The business I started from my bedroom, still going, stronger than ever actually. I hired 2 more people last year. We hit 6 figures for the first time. I don't work 80-hour weeks anymore. I don't pack orders until midnight or cry over shipping errors. Now I have time to breathe, to nap with my daughter, to walk outside without checking my phone for order issues. I live slow now, on purpose. There's a rhythm to my days. The baby cries and the kettle whistles and I dance with her in the kitchen while toast pops up and sunlight cuts across the floor. It's quiet, gentle, no shouting, no slammed doors, no guilt soaking into the walls. As for my family, we haven't spoken since they left. No texts, no calls, no sudden drop-ins. I didn't block them, but I didn't reach out either. I didn't leave the door open, just in case. I didn't hold my breath waiting for an apology that would never come. And you know what? The world kept turning, but people talk. Relatives always talk, especially when they think you're not listening. At a cousin's wedding last year, someone pulled me aside with that look. The one that says, I heard things, but I'm pretending I didn't. She said, I saw your parents a while back. They're not doing great. Apparently, they moved in with my uncle after I kicked them out. That lasted about 6 months. Something about unpaid bills, my mom yelling at his wife, Ryan leaving moldy dishes in the guest room. My uncle told them to leave. Ryan never made it past his 2nd semester at Harvard. Said the pressure was too much. Said no one ever taught him how to take care of himself. Last I heard, he's back in our hometown, working part-time and blaming bad luck for everything. My mom tried playing the sympathy card on Facebook for a while. Vague posts about ungrateful children and being abandoned when you need love the most. One of my cousins sent me a screenshot with the caption, "She's really out here writing fan fiction about herself, huh?" I laughed, but it didn't sting, because none of it surprised me, and none of it changed what I knew to be true. I gave them chance after chance. I paid the bills. I shared my home. I did the work. I kept the peace. And when I finally asked for something in return just one day to be celebrated, they showed me exactly where I stood. So no, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel cruel. I feel free. Some people say family is unconditional, but I think that's just something people say when they want you to keep bleeding for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you. Respect should be the real condition. So should accountability. I don't hate them. I'm just not carrying them anymore. This house feels different now. Bigger, lighter. Like it remembers they're gone too. My daughter runs through the hallway like it's her private kingdom. Sometimes I catch her sitting in the nursery, singing to her stuffed animals while the wind brushes the curtains. The first time she saw a picture of Ryan one I hadn't tucked away yet, she asked, "Who's that?" I looked at her, thought about everything. About the years I spent being told to shrink. About the party that wasn't mine. About the quiet that followed the storm. I said, "Just someone we used to know." And she nodded like that was enough. Because for us, it is. We have new people in our life now. Friends who feel like family. Neighbors who show up. A support group of moms who trade babysitting and casseroles. People who don't ask for everything and then vanish when you need something back. This is the life I wanted. Not the flashy kind. Not perfect, but honest, earned, built brick by brick with my own hands. The other day, I stood on the porch watching the sun go down. My daughter was in her pajamas, chasing fireflies in the yard. She laughed, and the sound floated into the trees like smoke from a warm fire. And I thought, this is the ending I was always supposed to have. Not dramatic, not explosive, just quiet, just mine. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for taking up space in my own story. So if you're out there wondering if you're the villain for choosing yourself, you're not. You're just finally giving yourself the life they kept promising, but never delivered. And sometimes, that's the most radical thing you can do. Thanks for listening. Let me know in the comments, did I do the right thing? Would you have done it differently? I'm genuinely curious.